Guys, I'm going to show you how to edit the website because it's really actually super easy if you just know a couple basic things, because what you got to do is get in there and just kind of play around with things, because each module is different in itself, so there's not one set of rules to go by. You just kind of got to get in there and get it done. So to get started, what you got to do is go up here to the admin button, and you're gonna have all these options, but for what we're doing right now is just the pages. And by the way, only admins have this, so don't worry, like nobody else has access to this. And where it brings us is to this little page, and it is for admin use, and it has like users or modules, automations, the pages, games, and all kinds of stuff, which I can get into later if you guys want me to, but for right now, we're just editing the page because I want you guys to know how, in case like you come up with an idea for something and you're like, oh, and like you're just can't, I'm not feeling it, like I don't know what you're saying, you know what I mean? So you can just do it yourself. Okay, let me break this down for you. Right here is a list of all the pages that have been created, and today I'm going to go to testing page because if you want to practice, that's where you're going to want to go. And as well, I want you guys to know that if two people want to test at the same time, you're going to want to make a new testing page, which you should be able to do by the end of this. So, I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult, because if two people are trying to edit the same page, it's going to mess things up because it's going to be pulling stuff that they're trying to do and the other person's trying to do, and it's probably not going to make sense to it, and it can probably break some things, I'm sure. I've never really had anybody else edit pages that I've been a part of, so I'm not sure. But that's why I'm saying just make sure if you're editing, let others know, because somebody else might be wanting to do it and it's not going to work out. As well as when you're editing modules, which just might not make sense right now because you don't really know what I'm talking about, but it will. When you're editing modules, it's going to change that across the board. So if you have one on the testing page and say it's already being used on a page that's active, it's going to change on that page too. So make sure you know what you're doing before you play with the modules that have already been created. Just like make new ones, call them testing. We can most definitely delete those later, so don't worry. We can get rid of them if you don't, if you mess it up. It's not a big deal, especially if it's on this testing page, because nobody can see it. All right, let's get started. So we'll start fresh. Let's pretend that you had an idea, you really want to start working on this page. So you're like, how do I start a new page? Well, here's how. Just click on create page. And I've not used these two, but if they need implemented later for some reason, I'm sure that we can figure it out. But you just click create page and you name it testing page 2, and then you would give it a URL, which would probably be the same thing. I always like to keep it the same thing, just not to confuse people. I'm not even really sure why anybody would make it different, but this right here is shown right here. And this URL is what is shown right here. That's how that works. And I'm not really sure what the columns are either. I've never changed it. I don't really know what it does. So if you want to mess with it, I don't really know. I wouldn't do it. This will automatically add this to your top menu bar, which I'll show you what that is here in a minute. But I don't do this either because, especially if we added this to it, it's going to be on our menu bar and people would be able to click it, and we don't want that, and especially if you don't have a completed page first. So I'll show you how to add that in later. So no biggie, keep that none. I've never messed with any of this, but I'm sure if you want to, you guys can probably Google it because I have absolutely no idea what it does. And then here is page access, which will probably be implemented not often, but sometimes, because I have the admin page, we have this testing page, which I do have as Administers only. You can pick any tag you want or anything. So you just have to do that, and remember to remove the people that are already there, because that tricks you sometimes. And you're like, oh, I've got this admin page, and you didn't remove the registered users, and they can still see it. So that kind of sucks. Or you can password protect it and make a password and give everybody the password to it, etc. But we're not even making a page, so we're gonna press cancel. All right, let's go on to page settings, which is essentially the same thing as create a page. It's just to edit the settings of already existing pages. So we really don't need to do anything here, so we can just keep on going. And then there's view page, which just opens up a tab with the page that you're working on currently, which is good. You want that open because every time I add something, I go in there and I refresh it, just so you know what's going on. And then there's this information bar right here, which has your URL, your access, and the title, which, if you notice, here's this warning: this page is not linked on any active navigation menus on your website. So the editor lets you know when a link is broken, which is really cool because sometimes things mess up, you know, that kind of thing happens, and it's like, hey, nobody can see this, come fix me, and you fix it, and it's good to go. But we don't want this on there because we don't want anybody to see this. This is for our personal use only, for people to practice and play around and learn everything. So that's cool. We want it like that. As well as access is administrators only. And I'm pretty sure all the titles say this. So I think that's actually in settings where you would change that, but I'm sure we all are in agreement that that should probably be it. Okay, let's actually get started on editing a page. First, you're gonna just wanna add some containers, which are these, and I will show you exactly what that did. It just adds them in there. You have to actually now add modules, which there's quite an extensive list of. So you just scroll through them, and over here, it'll tell you how many of these modules we have on our site currently. And this is already made modules. So what we clicked on, we're gonna wanna place the header there, because normally on top, you want everything to look the same. So you're gonna want your top menu and your header up there. So when you do that, come over here and refresh so you can see what happened. You added what is over here, so now people can navigate across the site. Okay, once you have the global modules, the header and top menu, you can go down here and break this main column into 3 columns by pressing the plus signs on the side. And it's just gonna automatically pop up some columns for you. A left, and then you can do the right as well. Let's add some containers just so you can see what it looks like over here. And all that does is split them down the middle. Well, not the middle, but you know what I mean. It splits them up. But you can come over here and you can adjust it by dragging these arrows, and it will change the size of them. Just be aware, if you're putting a picture here and it's too big, it could break it. So it might not show the image if there's not enough space for it. Okay, so now we can come in here and we can actually add some modules, which you can pick from here. Like I said, they're all unique in themselves and their settings, so everything is going to be different depending on the module you pick. So you really do have to come in here and just play around with them. But I created test voice comms just to play around with for right now. So to edit a module, all you need to do is click the pen tool, and it's going to pop up a tab right here. And depending on what module you pick is going to depend on the settings that you have to change. And this is the TeamSpeak module, so you would just input that information here and always make sure to save. And then you can come back over here and refresh to see what it added. And if you look, it did add it, but since there's no information in there, there's not going to be anything to be seen. But normally what this will do is it's going to show everybody that's on the TeamSpeak server at this time. So your users can easily see who's already on TeamSpeak from your website. Okay, once you have your first module complete, if you want to add another module in this same container, you can do that by coming over to these 3 dashes and adding a row or column. So let's just add something here real quick so you can see what it looks like, and come over here and refresh. Since this didn't have anything in the top row, it just automatically groups up there. And that's what I mean by coming in here and just playing around, because it's all trial and error. You just have to mess around and see what works best for what you're trying to make the site look like, to be honest. So say you've completed a page and you have a couple extra things on here that you don't want and you want to get rid of them. So how you do that is to delete a row or column, you just go back to these 3 dashes and you're just like, hey, see ya. Oops, delete it. And you also come to these 3 dashes to remove a module. Then to remove a container, you just click these red X's. Or you can just remove an entire column by clicking on the arrow right here. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. Don't let it, intimidate you. It's not hard at all. Just start playing around and have fun with it. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.